From the News Channel 8 studios, let's talk live with your hosts, Natasha Barrett and Melanie Hastings.
Getting into college, you know, it's very competitive. Some little things every family can do to give their child a leg up on the competition.
The college application process is more competitive than ever before. Many parents and students can feel really overwhelmed and often don't even know where to begin with this process. Ann Dolin is the president of Educational Connections, and she's here to talk about simple things that every family can do to give their child that competitive edge to one-up the next guy, right? Because everybody's doing the same thing, and it's the season. Tis the season.
Tis the season, and you know, it starts earlier and earlier every year, it seems.
You always hear about, okay, what you need to do, the obvious things are take your PSATs and then your SATs. How early is too early? What are we recommending now for our kids?
Well, parents really start thinking about these things in middle school, because in 8th grade, you know, it makes sense though. In 8th grade, you're picking classes for 9th grade, and you really want to make sure, if your child is capable, that he or she can take some honors classes, because honors classes can really boost a student's GPA. For example, if you get a B, which is a 3.0 in a history class, but you get a B in an honors class, that counts as a 3.5 towards your grade point average. So those honors classes can make a big difference in your overall grade point average, and in some counties like Montgomery County, it counts as a full point. So instead of getting a 3.0, you get a 4.0 for taking an honors class.
Interesting. All these little things you need to know. Now, if there's some parents watching and going, oh gosh, my kid's in 9th or 10th grade, I didn't do that in 7th or 8th. It's not too late to do things to prepare. What would you recommend now for that stage of the game?
Well, for that stage of the game, certainly thinking ahead about test prep, about SATs and ACTs. And it's interesting about that. Kids start thinking about this as sophomores, really, because like you said, they take PSATs usually as freshmen and sometimes again as sophomores. But when they're thinking about the real test, a lot of kids in this area are so determined to take the SAT, because far and away it's the most popular test in the Mid-Atlantic area. But the ACT has just surpassed the SAT for the amount of kids taking it. It's become more and more popular. So kids really do have a choice.
More and more popular, but how are colleges looking at it? Would they prefer both test scores, one or the other? The SAT still rules the roost when it comes to that?
No, they don't. They really don't care, honestly. They don't care. What they're looking for is top scores. And I've found that if kids focus on one test instead of trying to study for two, they can boost their scores far better than kind of being all over the place and studying for two exams.
Gotcha. We talked about 8th grade, 9th, 10th. Let's talk about junior year, because that's when things really start happening for college applications, college decisions. What do you recommend for a junior in high school right now?
Well, they need to have a plan going into their junior year. They have to know when they're going to take the test. And you know, the mistake I see a lot of kids make is they say, oh, I'll just take it, you know, whenever, when all my friends are taking it. But they have to have a method. So they have to go into their junior year giving themselves about 3 to 5 months to prepare for either the SAT or the ACT. So most kids will take that test, one of the tests, in the spring of their junior year, and then again in the fall of their senior year. The mistake kids make is that they take it in the fall of their junior too early, or January. They need more time to prepare, but also to get more curriculum under their belts. So they really should be looking at the spring. That's ideal.
Springtime, good time. College applications, let's talk about that. These days, gosh, it's so much easier. I remember doing my application and typing it. Typing it on forms.
I remember those days.
Typing it, that you wanted to kill yourself when you messed up, you know. But nowadays, you know, my stepson did it on the computer, and you could, this magical thing, you could save it and come back to it. I was so jealous. So let's talk about the college application. It is much more user-friendly these days.
It is.
Is there a thing of too early? What are some tips on, you know, when you should start this as a parent and student kind of compilation?
Well, you should start early on. Certainly, at least, you know, when you're in the area of a college, take a drive-by. Get your child exposed to different universities and colleges in the area. But really, kids can start thinking about those things in their junior year. They don't have to apply then, but they do need to start thinking ahead to at least the schools that are in their ballpark. So what they can do is go to collegeboard.org, and there they can input their PSAT or their SAT scores. They can put in information about their grade point average. the types of schools they're looking for example, small liberal arts, and in the area of the country, and up will pop a list of lots of colleges. So it starts kids thinking ahead. Well, these might be in my range. These are in the ballpark. I should start thinking about these schools.
And maybe take a visit, too.
Absolutely.
To round all of this out, I want to talk about scores and what is a good score when it comes to SAT, ACT. What is out there? What are the numbers?
Well, here's the thing. For the ACT, the national average is a 21.
Okay.
Schools are wanting to see much higher scores than that, though. Most of the competitive schools want to see scores in the high 20s. For the SAT, the average subtest scores, like reading, writing, and math, is 500, but the highest you can get is 800. So some really competitive schools are going to want to see scores in the mid 700s, and that's tough for a lot of kids. That's why they have to start early preparing. It gets so stressful if kids wait until crunch time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'd advise parents to do, and kids, is to think about your extracurriculars. Don't wait until that junior year to think, oh wait, I've only played soccer my whole life, and I've never joined a club.
I need to join the Latin club all of a sudden.
And then that's what they do. They run out and they'll join about 10 clubs. It's better to start 9th grade, join a club, and then move on to a leadership role within that club to show initiative.
All right, Ann Dolin, good to see you. Thanks for those tips.